So we're now going to bring in Blake Smith from Monster Talk. Blake and I also go way back. We've been sort of colleagues in the skeptical podcasting scene for a long time, with Blake having a particular focus on monsters and how we take a science-based look at them. And there he is. And my gosh, you have a lot of books behind you, sir. How are you doing, Blake?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Doing just fantastic. I recommend that you do a 13-hour Monster Talk episode.
I don't know if I could fund for 13 hours.
That's true. Well, your basement looks tidier than the last time I was there. When
I moved upstairs. This is actually
you're upstairs.
Back up to I've got sunlight coming in during the day.
Wow.
It was 98 degrees today, Brian. It's October. The world's all messed up. So
our snow just melted the other day.
Go to hell.
All right. So anyway, Blake, you have been hosting Monster Talk since when? When did Monster Talk start?
In 2009, July. And actually when I stopped working on it to do this, but we're about to release our 200th episode.
Wow.
So, yeah, time flies, doesn't it?
That's a fun milestone, isn't it?
It really is. I'm very excited. And we're covering, I don't know if you know this or not, but we're doing a 200th episode. We're doing a look at the TV show In Search Of. And it's been such an influential, well, of course you know it. You contributed to it. Never mind. But the point is...
But all the people listening don't know, so we need to hear about it anyway.
Right. So, yeah, it's such an influential show. It's a show that so many people... and if there is an aisle of believers and non-believers, I think people on both sides were heavily influenced by the show. So I'm excited to take a look at it for my 200th episode. And we also just announced that I partnered up with archaeologist Jeff Card, and we're doing a watch-through of In Search Of. And we're calling that In Research Of, which I'm really enjoying that title. And it just hit iTunes today. Which is, it's going to be basically, and you may recall the introduction to In Search Of, they say,
sure,
the producers only have time to look at a few possible explanations. Well, we go in and look at the other explanations, and it's a lot of fun. And we're uncovering all kinds of interesting things about the people who wrote the show and the people and the topics that were covered. And it's just been a delight to kind of go back and revisit the show, but also to bring to it, 40 years of science and skepticism that I've picked up over the years. And so it's a lot of fun to figure out what they included, what they didn't include, and why. So I'm really excited about releasing that, and that's going to be something to kind of keep an eye on kind of going forward.
What are the reasons why? How many episodes of In Search Of were there? Not that many, were there?
There were 6 seasons of the original series. So I think 144.
So
like that.
You're going to do that many episodes, right? Ideally.
What?
You hope to.
We're definitely going to get season 1. I'm confident of that because we're well over halfway already done in the can. And if the show is successful, I think there's no reason not to continue it. Now, I don't know if we'll. We've got the 6 seasons with Leonard Nimoy, and then there was a pickup series briefly in the early 2000s with Mitch Pileggi from The X-Files hosting. But that was a lot more like, do you remember the TV show for Ripley's Believe It or Not?
Yeah.
It was a lot more like that.
Sure.
And now they've got the new series out with Zachary Quinto, which is much more of a modern reality TV investigation show. It's quite a different format. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right that In Search Of was really influential for me. I still remember it being my favorite TV show each week, and I was so eager to watch it. And I believed, as I assume you did, I believed every word that Nimoy said without critique. And I would go through my daily life amazed that these things were actually real in the world and nobody else seemed to care about them.
Yeah, Mr. Spock, you have to kind of believe them, right?
Of course.
Yeah. and we talk about that. We are actually, one of the things we're doing in our format is, at the end of the episode, we go back and look at, how entertaining was it, and how convincing or compelling was it, and how weird was it, which I think is kind of a fun metric. But on the how compelling or how convincing was it, that one is a little tricky because now it's really hard to convince me of anything. And back when I was a child, it was really easy. So we kind of split it. What do I remember it being like back then, and what are we looking at it now? So it's the plausibilities have still been pretty wild because unlike modern sort of paranormal shows, In Search of sometimes included real science, and then sometimes they didn't. It was all over the place. It's really fun to go back and listen to stuff.
So
you like the Lost Dutchman Mind episode, didn't you? Wasn't that one of yours?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I just heard that again the other day while I was in the car.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like there. It's funny to me because you would think. Well, in fact, I know many of the mysteries that were covered on that show were solved before that show was recorded.
Yeah.
But also some of them have been solved since. Yet you can still you can find these TV shows about the money pit mystery, and that's just astonishing to me. Because people, there is a money pit, but it's the figurative money pit.
It is. It's absolutely. That's a great way of putting it. That's totally true. The money pit is not a hole in the ground with money buried in it.
Right.
Can we pick up a picture? Can we bring up 18 Stonehenge? I'm going to bring up a picture here, and you probably just heard me say what it is, and you probably already know what it is. I would like you to explain this photograph to us, and ignore the fact that one of these things is not like the others.
Well, this is the Georgia Guidestones, and I can only partially see the photo. So it looks like a bunch of really intrepid ghost hunters investigating. That would be my guess. They're all wearing ghost hunting gear. Yeah, is that right? Is that what that is?
That's the picture, yes, and we're all wearing authentic ghost hunting black clothes.
No, that was a really fun day trip we did at Dragon Con. Oh my gosh.
So this is Richard Saunders and Dr. Raichi from the Skeptic Zone podcast, and a colleague podcast of both of ours, I would say, in Australia. And we were all in town in Atlanta for Dragon Con, where you live. And so now I remember that the guy who built these, the guy who was the contractor who was hired by the Mystery Man to build this.
R.C. Christensen. Right?
That was the Mystery Man, right?
That's the Mystery Man, yeah.
But the guy that built it, his daughter got in touch with us. Do you remember that?
I remember you talking about that because you may recall I was driving.
Yeah.
We're gonna just hop up the road to Elberton, and it turns out that's a really long drive.
It was much longer than I think any of us anticipated. But so I had done an episode about the Georgia Guidestones because. Some guy contracted to have it built, and it's got his philosophies of life on the stones. That's basically all there is to it. There's no great mystery, except that we don't really know who he was. As far as I know, we don't. But
right, not officially.
Yeah,
right.
But so there's all kinds of conspiracy theories about it. People think that it's the manifesto of the New World Order because it talks about things like reducing the world's population to 500 million. And things like that.
And even when it was created, there were 3.8 billion people on the Earth. So that was. I always like to be charitable and assume that was a numerical typo, but. So
the guy after I did the podcast episode, the daughter of the contractor who built it, and he's not secret. It was well known. He was the guy hired to build it. I just don't recall his name. He's passed away now, but his daughter got in touch with me and said, "Hey, I read about your thing. If you're ever in Georgia, let me know, and I'll take you out to the Guidestones and tell you all about it." And I think when we got this, all four of us there, we go, "Oh my God, we got to take advantage of that." And it's like literally as we were getting in the car and heading out the door to go, she called me back and there was some conflict or problem, and she was not able to meet us, which was unfortunate, but it was a really fun trip nevertheless. I don't often get to actually go to the places that are discussed in Skeptoid episodes, but when I do,
Finley.
What's that?
Joe Finley.
Finley, yes, that's it. Yeah. And if I search through my email, I'm not gonna put her name out there, but she was a very nice lady, and it was a very generous offer, and I'm sad that it didn't work out. But anyway, it's a lot of fun to finally actually go to one of these places. But I guess you've been there before. You live in Georgia, right?
I do live in Georgia, but I had not been there before. I was actually excited at the opportunity. It's shameful how many things I don't get to in Georgia.
Yeah.
There's a lake monster, Alti, down in the river in South Georgia, a little bit south of Savannah. Well, allegedly, and it hasn't been seen in quite a while. But Alti is one of those places I should go, and I just have never made it down there. So and there's a now in Sherry Log, which is like almost up to there's the Apple Festival in North Georgia, just in North. It's not too far from here, about an hour and a half. There's now a Bigfoot museum, so that's been one of those places I've been wanting to get up to. And it's been there a couple of years now, and I hear really good things about it. So I'm hoping to make that trip. But when I go on road trips, I always take the time to stop at these places if I can. So when I drove out to Tam in 2013, I took my family and we all stopped in Falk, Arkansas to go to the Monster Mart, and we went to. I've been on a paranormal road trip. I drove out to Roswell, New Mexico, and so that might be legend tripping. I'm not sure. That was an influential trip for me, but we almost made it to Area 51/Rachel Nevada back then. I actually finally made it to Rachel in 2017, I think. So yeah, that was kind of fun. My wife, Rachel is. It looks on the map. It's one of those deceptively close to Las Vegas, and then you start driving it and realize it's like a 3-hour drive, and there's nothing between there. There's just desert and mountains. So
yeah, no, that's true. I mean, my Area 51 trip is better than anyone else's though, because I got to go there before 9/11, when you could still fly essentially over it and look right down at it, and you can't do that anymore. And so I
now you have
really
to practice your Naruto Ryan. It's a lot more trouble. So,
exactly. So it's funny that you're wearing that shirt, because that's representative of something I wanted to talk to you about. So my Skeptoid podcast episodes are short. They're 12 to 15 minutes, right? So when I did my episode on the Hopkinsville, what do we usually call that? The Hopkinsville Goblins?
I call it the Kelly Hopkinsville Goblin.
I think I called it the Kelly Hopkinsville Encounter or something like that.
Yeah.
So as one can tell from looking at your shirt, I'm not sure if you can see this well enough, but it's a goblin-type creature over a country farmhouse at night.
Right.
That's basically it.
Yeah, I love this shirt. It's got it's actually a glow in the dark. I picked this up at CryptidCon this year.
Of course you did.
And the Suttons. I can't think of his daughter's name, but the daughter of Lucky was there giving a talk.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so that was kind of fun to meet her, and I got a signed copy of her book. And it's really interesting because her book is the one that mentions that the day after the event, some of the guys had to head back up to Ohio, and where they had actually been, they were carnies, and so they were working at a carnival, and they had to go back up there for something, move furniture or something. But that had been right around the same time, within a week or two before, when there had been this monstrous green some
buffering. We're buffering, people.
And so basically, we're buffering. Sorry, are you getting my audio?
Yeah, no, you're fine. Well, when it buffers, it stops, but that's cool. It's rare. Just keep going. Keep charging on through.
It's interesting because the Kelly Hopkinsville case doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens at a time when UFO stories are all over the radio, and literally the town these people had just come from had a monster sighting within a week or two. So there's a lot more to the story contextually than is typically included in these narrations.
See, now that's exactly the point I wanted to talk about, because with my short Skeptoid episodes, I had done an episode on this event, and I can talk about it for 1,750 words, and that's not very much at all. And I like to think that I usually get a B+ at least as far as encapsulating the facts of what happened, as well as you mentioned, the context of why it probably happened. But then when you get around to do it, and this happens with so many of your shows, because many of your monster shows I've done a Skeptoid episode on, and then I hear yours, and it goes into so much more depth because it's a long format show. You have guests on. Yeah, I mean, you have. I will read their book or chapter of their book. You'll have them as a guest on your show and get to talk to them directly about what actually happened. And I remember your Kelly Hopkinsville episode was a 3-parter, right?
That's true.
Yeah, and so there was so much information in that I identified a number of things that I had wrong in my episode, and I went back and corrected. And so that's really the main reason why people are always asking me, what is my favorite podcast? What podcast do I listen to? And Monster Talk is always on that list. And the reason is really because that's one of the places where I get the corrections from for my little... I hate to say that I do a slapdash job. That's totally the wrong word.
No,
I didn't say that, people. It's a concise job. Yeah.
You do a great job. And most people, let's be honest, are not interested in spending 3 hours talking about Kelly Hopkinsville. So and I think even for what we did, we got into a lot of weird nuance around how the Wikipedia page was set up. And I went back and reread the original, Kufos research into it, and there was one aspect of the case that I thought was really interesting, was that at the time it happened, skeptics were coming through and saying, well, there's no real evidence that they actually fired their guns through the screen window. And I think I've told you about this experiment. I'm not sure if I have. I've got video of this, but I haven't put it on the line yet.
You have, but tell us anyway. Go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, one of the skeptics' complaints was there was no evidence that anybody had actually fired guns through the screen window. And the researchers went and took some measurements and drew some pictures of the screen window. But nobody, apparently, in all the intervening time, ever bothered to reproduce this effect. And it just turned out that I happened to have a screen, a frame, and the exact set caliber of guns necessary to go out and shoot through the window and see if it actually looked right. And so I went out in the country and I shot up a screen window for science and monsters.
And actually, you brought that to DragonCon, didn't you? Didn't you bring that shot up screen?
SciCon. I took it to Crypticon and did a presentation there about it. But I haven't actually published my findings, and I need to do that. Joe Nickel actually called me. I got to call him back, but he was like, "When are you going to write this up?" And I'm like, time. But it is a fun little video. Although, if I could, I would if I could go back and change anything, I would put on pants instead of the drawstring shorts I was wearing. It's not very cinematic, but it does fit in with that real, authentic redneck shooting up the screen window thing. So.
Blake is a man who used to eat brains when he was a child. Just point that out.
I've eaten a lot of weird stuff. I know from whence my food comes, I can tell you that.
Can you give us your Waffle House order?
Hash brown, scattered, smelly, covered top, chunked, diced, and peppered.
That's how we do it Southern style.
That's right.
So anyway, that the strength of Monster Talk is not necessarily in its long format so much as it is in its comprehensiveness. And I think I do think that you truly leave no stone unturned. At least you make that attempt.
We try.
And my process is the opposite, is I have to decide which stones to leave unturned. Because I've always got to keep it to, okay, we've got to boil it down to just the central facts, and we're not going to go down any of these avenues. And often you have to, and I have to decide which of those is least important or impacts the conclusion the least. So, there's trade-offs. It's nice to have a really short show, and it's also nice to have the whole picture when you need that. So,
yeah.
So what I need you to do is do episodes on everything else I've ever done a show on.
I don't want to say we're constrained, but by picking the topic of monsters, we have had to expand what constitutes a monster quite a bit to cover some of the stuff we want to do. I obviously, Karen and I have interests that expand far beyond just monster stories and cryptozoology. So, I think that's been an interesting challenge. But what I like about the Skeptoid format is that you've put out a product that's concise, clean, gets to the point, is got all the notes there for anybody who is going to bother and look at them. And you've also developed this audience that will keep you honest, and that's really important. I mean, you don't run around and block people when they say you've made a mistake. You correct it, and that is literally what science is all about. It's not about being right all the time. It's about recognizing and fixing it when you made a mistake. So I think that's one of the things I really like about your show, and I think you do a good service because you cover so many odd topics. And I'm always very excited if I think of one that won't fit on my show, that might fit on yours. I get to send you a little tech. Have you seen this? Check this crazy stuff out.
I get a lot of that. All kinds of shows send me this stuff that's not quite their format, but he'll do anything. Send it to him.
You've got a very broad platform to work with. And I mean, you do have your time constraints, but I think if nothing else, you serve as a gateway for giving people a really good primer, depending on how you want to pronounce it, on critical thinking and how to look at these problems. Because these problems are not always easy. And so you give people a basis from which they can sort of attack and figure out whether or not something's real or not. And that, to me, it drives me nuts that as a parent, my kids have a tendency to come and ask me, is this real? Is that real? And, oh my God, I love it giving them answers. But what I really need to do is teach them, here's how you find out. Don't just ask your dad, because that's just an argument with authority.
Right.
But here's where you go find out stuff. And it's like, many people will start with Wikipedia. I know Susan Jervick's done a lot of work on, coordinating, getting more critical thinking towards Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a great place to start, but go down to the resources and check them, because I find mistakes all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Heartbreaking.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm getting killed by one. My episode this week was on global warming and economics, basically arguing in favor of a carbon tax. And the Wikipedia page on the tragedy of the commons has a horrible, it's not an error, it's a horrible piece of graffiti that should not be on the page. And I've gotten so many emails basing everything on that as if that piece of graffiti is gospel, and therefore I need to retract the episode. It's been one of these times where I have to take a copy and paste response and put it on all these emails that I just keep getting. Sorry, you need to, don't go to the Wikipedia page for your information on that, please.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is a big issue, and it's not just Wikipedia. It's the nature of algorithms in general for how they give back search results. It's one of my pet peeves as an IT guy by day. It frustrates me that so many people rely on their Google results as being the answer to their question, not realizing that the very way they frame the question typically influences the results. And so, as a consequence, if they put in keywords that are consistent with their own thinking, the confirmation bias and a few proper results that match it, they're good to go. Just believing that the internet has just reinforced their beliefs, And it's really hard to teach people that you've got to be careful how you question things. You've got to look at your sources. Are the sources themselves reliable? And when is it okay to be skeptical about something people agree on? And when is it okay to be believing on something that many people are still skeptical about? It's tricky, understanding the difference between scientific consensus and argument from authority. There's so much going on, and it's really nice because with Skeptoid, you give people bite-sized views into how to do those tools. So, yeah.
So just a few minutes left, but I don't want to give the impression that Monster Talk is Blake Smith and only Blake Smith, because you've had other people working with you now and in the past. Do you want to give a shout-out to your co-hosts of... What?
Let's try that again. Sorry. I think I heard you say co-host. Are you able to hear me?
Oh, you weren't hearing me. I was saying...
Yeah.
I was saying, do you want to give a quick shout-out to the people you have worked with on Monster Talk, because it's not just your own project by yourself?
Right. No. So right now I'm working with Karen Stolzno. We've been together for the whole time.
Yeah.
Long ago, we had Ben Radford on, and he is doing his own podcast now. I guess you're having him on later. And I am delighted to be working with Jeb Card from the Archaeological Fantasies, and he's the author of Spooky Archaeology on this new show and research of. And then I'm also doing a show called The Horror Podcast at thehorrorpod.com, which is because I also just like horror movies, so that's kind of fun.
Are you doing that one all by yourself?
Well, I'm having friends on and some episodes by myself. I'm working on something for Halloween, a set of episodes called Tour of Italy, where we're going to look at Bava, Fulci, and Argento, and just kind of talk about how to understand and enjoy Italian horror movies. That's going to be a hoot. So,
did
I'm
you
also looking at the 70s stuff. I just like horror movies. So,
did you do an episode on The Thing yet?
no, we're only 2 episodes live on that so far. I was thinking if I decided to do The Thing, I should probably call someone who really likes the movie a lot. So
I can't imagine that might.
I'll look around. Let you know.
Blake and I, The Thing has been our favorite movie for forever. I just wanted to point out, my son told me that he went to a trivia night at a pub in Portland the other night, and their team name was the Men of Outpost 31.
Nice. Yeah, I got the Thing. What is it called? Infection at Outpost 31, the board game. I can barely read it from here. So that was like one of my Christmas presents. So I haven't got to play yet. But it's one of those games where you're playing all the characters, but somebody's not really a person. So it's one of those things pretending to be a person. All I'm saying is watch Clark. Watch it play.
Oh my gosh. We've got like 90 seconds left here. What can we do in 90 seconds? Let me ask you one thing, if you can squeeze it into a minute. You and I have often spoken of the need to expand beyond just doing one podcast, which obviously you're doing now with 3 of them that you're juggling simultaneously. What was that?
Yes. Yay!
Oh, okay. And do you have any particular thoughts that you would offer to perhaps budding podcasters in terms of business model or what you should do or what you shouldn't do? And again, you've got 50 seconds.
Well, I would say definitely do a podcast. And if you're going to do video, keep your videos around 5 minutes and add transcripts so that Google can find your content.
Yes.
And I've actually literally spent half today writing up my notes because now that I'm putting together multiple podcasts, people are always asking me, how do you do this? So I'm actually writing an article about that now to kind of collect all my learnings into a hopefully small, tight, Skeptoid style. Here's how you do it.
An article to be on your website, or does that go in Skeptical Inquirer or something?
It's for my day job. I'm getting paid for this.
Really?
Yeah. It's just I'm one of the chief marketing people for my company, Apex Process Consultants. So I know they didn't pay for advertising time here, but
okay. All right. Well, sir, it is time to let you go with regret. Thank you very much for hanging out with us for half an hour tonight. Great to see you as always.
Likewise. Have a good evening.
All right, you too.
Happy birthday.
Oh, yay.